right off the bat, there's not really a huge price difference in these two phones, so I would go with the 13. But I do want to tell you a little bit about my experience between using the 13 and the 12, because I actually did use them both recently, and I think you'd be surprised, because on paper, the two processors in this phone are very similar. So the A14 in the iPhone 12 is on the 5nm process. The A15 in the iPhone 13 is on the 5nm P process. So very similar, just slightly higher clock speeds on the A15 CPU. Their GPU is largely the same, so in terms of GPU performance, you can expect about a 15% boost. And then in terms of CPU performance, you can expect about 10% on single core and about 20% on multi-core. But overall, it's not really a huge difference. But in my experience between the two phones, there was a huge difference, and there are a few things that kind of explain that. One of the huge differences I had was battery life. So not only does the iPhone 13 have a larger battery, it's also a little bit thicker and heavier because of that. The iPhone 13 uses an X60 from Snapdragon, the modem. It's a little more efficient, so overall, Apple claimed at launch that the iPhone 13 would get 2 or 3 hours more battery life. That has extended way beyond, especially now I think probably because we're using 5G more than 4G these days, at least in my area. I think the more efficient modem is making a pretty big difference there. The iPhone 13 lasts me all day, no problem. The iPhone 12 I was charging non-stop, and it technically has a little more battery health. One of the only other differences is actually in the neural engine, in terms of SoC differences. The neural engine on the iPhone 13 is only a little faster. So on the 12, it is 11 trillion operations per second. So that runs things like your Face ID, actually all sorts of stuff. It runs the camera when you're taking videos and photos and whatever. The neural engine is heavily involved in the computational processing of those. On the iPhone 13, it is 15.8 trillion operations per second. And apparently that's just enough to allow you to do cinematic video, which at least for me as a YouTuber, night and day difference. That's reason alone to get the 13 over the 12. Another reason in terms of the camera that you might want to get the 13 over the 12 is the 13 added sensor shift optical image stabilization. Got it. That was before only on the 12 Pro Max. So that just makes a pretty significant difference in stability when you're especially recording video, but also when you're taking photos. It can move the sensor around instead of the lens. The sensor is much lighter, so it can move the sensor around many more times per second than it can move the lens around. So very good. And it's an actual physical thing. It's not like digital. It's not like a crop. The 13 also has an improved image signal processor, which leads to overall better videos and photos. And I think actually the videos on the iPhone 13 are quite exceptional. So the pictures that come out of this Pixel 9, I think are probably better than the pictures that come out of the iPhone 13, but the videos are not. Apple is just too far ahead on video, in my opinion. The iPhone 13's main camera also has a much larger sensor, so it lets in, they say 43% more light. It's definitely better in low light than the iPhone 12 is, but neither are really that great. Here are some picture and video samples from the 12 and the 13. This is being done in a controlled lighting environment, so it should give both of them a pretty good shot. Connectivity is largely the same, so no difference in the band supported and no difference in the Wi-Fi band supported. One thing you might notice is that the iPhone 12 only goes to 625 nits when it's getting really bright. For the iPhone 13, it goes to 800 nits, so it's like 200 nits more when you're out in the sun reading things. They both get to 1200 nits for HDR content, but in terms of just general readability, the iPhone 13, I think it made a pretty significant difference. Not nearly as good as my Pixel 9. They both get iOS 27 support, but neither get any AI features. I did see a massive performance improvement on both devices. The performance of my iPhone 12 was honestly fine. It was the battery life that was killing me, and that's what the 13 does so much better. They both get the same ceramic shield, which is amazing drop protection. You can see the iPhone 12 is super beat up compared to the 13. The 13 always had a case on it, the iPhone 12 did not. But neither of them have cracked screens. Ceramic shield is fucking awesome. But you can get both of these devices for roughly the same price, and the iPhone 13 starts with double the storage that the iPhone 12 does. You're probably looking at a base model if you're buying used. So that's another really important reason you should just go with the 13. I really would not recommend the iPhone 12 anymore. The iPhone 13 is too cheap. And in fact, I would probably recommend going up to the 14 Pro if you can spare the little bit more that it's going to cost you. I think the camera differences, the dynamic island, like there's a lot of different things that make that a worthwhile upgrade. Maybe for a future video. Get subscribed.